My roommate in college brought an IBM 8086 PC our freshman year. This was the early 90s. Not many people had a computer in their dorm room. My roommate's dad was a preacher turned church superintendent, and the computer was a hand-me-down after the computer in that church administrative office had been replaced. We felt like kings of the campus. Well, we had some neighbors in the dormitory who liked to come into the room, help themselves to drinks out of our fridge, mess around on my Korg piano keyboard, and so on. My roommate and I were concerned about them messing around on the computer. So I let my roommate know that I'd discovered we could put a BIOS password on the computer, something only he and I would know. And with that, we could ensure that only we would be using that computer. So he says, "What should we make the password?" And so naturally, as a college freshman, my super mature idea was, we'll make it the word penis. And my roommate laughed and said, "That's a funny idea, but I don't really want to type that word in every time I sit down and use the computer. It'll feel weird." So I said, "Okay, let's do this. We'll change a couple letters around so it's still easy to remember, but we won't have to type that word in all the time." So we set the password to be Nepis, Nepis. Months went by. We used the computer to write our college papers, and then we'd take them by floppy disk over to the campus library to print them and turn them in. We didn't have to wait in line to use one of the 4 available terminals on campus. We could get our work done right in the comfort of our own room in the dorm. It was perfect. One day, the computer sort of broke down and needed service. Computer service was very expensive back then. So my roommate contacts his dad to see if he has any suggestions. My roommate's dad sends a trained guy from the church district over to our college to take a look at our computer. The guy they send was a man named Eugene Figge, a deacon/elder of the church. This very devout, upright, proper Christian guy who also happens to know his way around IBM computers. Eugene Figge shows up at our dorm room, dressed in a suit and tie like he'd just come from church. He fiddles with the computer for a couple minutes and has it booting in no time. And in order to finish a proper diagnostic routine, he just needs to log into the computer and check things out. And there's only one thing preventing him from doing that: a password prompt. And so, this old man in his Sunday best, a church elder and longtime friend of my roommate's dad, turns to my roommate and says, "Okay, what's the password?" Time freezes. My roommate's eyes get big as dinner plates. His face is flushed. Then his eyes narrow as he glares at me. I'm sure reviewing our conversation months ago when I'd suggested the immature password and had assured him that only he and I would ever know. "Nepis," my roommate says, mumbling under his breath. "I'm sorry, what was that?" says Eugene Figge. There is nothing wrong with Eugene Figge's hearing. He heard it just fine. He just can't believe it. My roommate's face turns a darker shade of purple as he is forced to say it again. Nepis. Nepis. He looks like he's about to lose consciousness. The stone-faced Eugene Figge stares at my roommate for what seems like an hour. His lips tighten, his eyes narrow ever so slightly. At last, he returns his attention to the computer, types in the phallic password in its hopelessly childish disguise, and proceeds with the computer diagnostic without a word. My roommate is silent as well, as his gaze returns to me, his lower jaw jutting out like a bulldog. I can hear him breathing through his nose, the measured tempo of controlled breath of a man with murder on his mind. We'll laugh about this someday, I try to tell myself. We'll laugh about this someday.